Welcome to the ECOM Profit Podcast. I am your host, Laz Chavez, and today we have a special guest that is joining us. This guy, guys, I'm telling you, I'm kind of like a little shaky here because this guy was actually the guy that introduced Richard and I to e-commerce. So it was about like 5 years ago, like in 2015, that we got exposed to the person that we're bringing on the podcast today. And I'm super excited to kind of pick his brain, see what he's been doing, kind of like have him share some of his techniques and secrets with us. So I'm super excited for this. When we first started e-commerce, again, we ran into this guy and it was actually an ad. He was running an ad talking about drop shipping, the possibilities. And when we first heard about it, it blew our mind. It completely like changed the way that we thought about things. Personally, I was thinking of becoming a mechanical engineer. And when Richard brought this up, he's like, yo, look, I saw this ad about this guy talking about how you can sell products online, not hold any inventory, and make money from this. I like the idea was absurd to me. It's an honor to have this guy on the podcast. I'm super grateful and super thankful to have him on here. Honestly, he took a part out of his day to join it. So I'm really excited for this. He's a 7-figure drop shipper, over 130,000 subscribers on YouTube. He's one of the top guys in the e-com space, founder of ECOM Dudes and the 100K Blueprint. Without any further ado, Dan Dasilva.
Laz, you're the man. Thank you so much for that amazing introduction.
You got it, man. I'm super excited for this podcast because, like I said, the reason why we got into e-commerce was because of you, man. So extremely grateful. Super happy to have you on here, and just want to pick your brain a little bit, see like what you've been up to, hear more about your story and all that good stuff. So I think it would be great.
Yeah, for sure. Anything you got, just throw it right at me.
All right, so before we dive into the nitty gritty of e-commerce and whatnot, I guess for like the audience, just share your story, kind of like how you got started, um, and like where you are now.
All right. So, I got started when I was first off, I've been marketing online since I was like 14, 15. So I got involved when I was really, really young. I actually took my mom's credit card and bought so many of like a bunch of different info products and whatnot of really hypey stuff that I saw when I was really young and I got hooked into. And then I started, realizing that I was hanging out on this forum and I started realizing people were making a lot of money just doing a bunch of other different business models. I was intrigued in like CPA and like SEO and when Google Panda and all that was a thing. So so then I went into this little section of the forum. It was called e-commerce and drop shipping and wholesale and yada yada. So it was literally the least commented on part of the forum. And I started going through all these threads and people were just posting like results after results after results. I was like, man, this is insane. There's so many people posting results here, but not a lot of people are reading this. Like it just kind of blew my mind. So I learned about it at around 16, 17 years old, drop shipping, right? So when I was 18, I really went ahead and went full, just full head first into the drop shipping realm. Had no idea what I was doing, to be quite honest with you. And that's kind of like the whole part of the process was that I had literally no idea what to do when I first got started. So I started asking a bunch of questions like where was people getting, their products? What were you using to sell your products? How was everything coming together? How were you selling those products? Like who were the customers? How were you finding them? Where were you putting the products on? So I started getting all those, questions answered just by reading and learning a lot through this forum. And the forum, since then has been, it was bought out and then it completely died. Like it completely died off. And but I mean, thank goodness that I went to that forum and I learned everything I possibly could. And then I got myself a mentor. So a mentor who literally taught me everything from the ground up, what dropshipping was, and all the little, nitty gritty tips, tricks, and techniques that you don't realize are there until you have somebody point it out to you. And so that's kind of where, I got my start was out of everywhere, a forum.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean the power of the internet, right? Like I think back in the day it was really hard to get information, but now with a forum, like Reddit, I guess the most popular one, but it's just crazy how much information you can get online. I know now with YouTube, you are huge on YouTube. So there's so much information out there and just the availability of it's insane. I kind of want to dive deeper in. You said you got started with a forum, but I kind of want to dive deeper into kind of like your successes and what, what type of e-commerce you were doing, successes in specific. I know that you experimented with one product stores, right? That
Yeah.
was a huge thing that you did. And I remember you were one of the main guys that was just like one product stores were crushing it, this and that. And I would see the results and I was like, wow, like that's amazing. So can you like dive a little bit deeper up and talk about one product stores and the idea behind it and all that stuff?
Yeah, for sure. So basically, there's two types of stores that I love. I love niche stores and I love one product stores. Now, one product stores, the conversions are tremendously higher than a niche store. But I'll touch on them both. Kind of talk about the pros and cons of both, so anybody listening can make their own decision. So when it comes down to a niche store, the pro of a niche store is that you're able to find multiple winners rather fast. However, it's you have to test a lot with a niche store, a lot more than you would necessarily have to test with a one product store. But the pro about this is that once you find a winner, you can always move it over to a to its own one product store. So,
Right.
and that's typically what we do now is we'll typically go quickly into a niche store, find that winner, just get some type of data in, and then move it over, quickly pivot to its own one product store. But there's criteria that we follow, that we go over, that and I'll talk about this in the workshop as well, is that there's certain criteria that we look for that we know is going to be a winner as a standalone product. And one product stores, they allow you to really go out there and give us the ability to have extremely higher conversion rates in comparison to just a niche store. Now, don't get me wrong, either or isn't incorrect. So it's really whatever floats your boat. But personally, for me, I do love the one product store model, because you only have to focus on that one single product. So it's not like I have a whole catalog that I need to constantly keep updating and taking track of the inventory and keeping up with all the suppliers. It's like, one product, a single supplier. I'm able to work with that supplier very laser focused, and getting the shipping times down drastically. So we don't have to wait, 14 to 16 days like a normal drop shipping product, when you have, tons of different suppliers to work with.
Right. 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 And I think in most instances too, like when, at least from personal experience, when we find something that works and us and our students, what we teach is general stores, right? Like we tell people, start general store. It's really easy to start. Um, uh, Generally you find one winner, right? Like
Yeah.
you typically aren't finding tens or hundreds of winners. You're finding one product. And I think the beauty of having that one product store is that you can really optimize it and dial it in, like laser focused, right? So um, so yeah, I think that's huge in and of itself. And I know you mentioned the workshop. Guys, we're gonna be doing a workshop with Dan and Richard and I, and it's gonna be insane, guys. So Dan's gonna actually break it all down. He's gonna tell you guys everything. The link will be in the description down below on YouTube. On the podcast, it will be out there too, so you guys can check that out. But it's gonna be insane. I know you put together a little book too, right? A book
Yep.
kind of explaining that process. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the little book it's very informative. So if you're watching this on the thank you page right now, then you definitely want to download that. If you haven't downloaded it yet, make sure you take a look at the description or somewhere where you can grab the link for the free book, because it's roughly almost 90 pages, and I kind of dissect everything. I show certain products, I show some results, like I show everything, and then we also go ahead and pivot to our students our beta group that we showed this specific system to, and some people went out there and made like 3.7 million in a year. It's just crazy, like the results that we got. But regardless, inside that book, I just wanted to dissect everything so it's a lot easier for everybody to understand from A to Z. Because yeah, you're listening to a podcast. Yes, you're watching this on YouTube, whatever it is. But it's way better if you can read it, take it in, digest it, and then the visuals are all there, so it makes a lot more sense. So I would highly recommend, reading that and whatnot.
Right. The book is the resource, right? So you can use that, and you can go back and forth. Like you can take it the steps one at a time. And I think, yeah, it's super beneficial to have that in a book format. And guys, it's 90 pages, so it's not like anything crazy. You don't have to read like a whole like 200-page novel to get the idea across. Everything's like broken up really well. I
Right.
actually went through it too, and I thought it was super insightful. There's actually things that I didn't know from before. So highly recommend. Um, so I kind of wanted to pivot to some more like, I guess, mentality questions.
Mhm.
Kind of talking about like failures everyone, as entrepreneurs, we all deal with failures. I think very commonly we all deal with like a little bit of manic depression, where like one day we're like at this high, then we're at this low, and usually like it's just something that comes with entrepreneurship, right? And it's just the
Right.
way that you react to it and kind of pivot off those failures that you have success, right? So I kind of want to talk about your what has been sort of like your biggest failure and how did you overcome it?
Oh boy, biggest failure. Geez. Okay. So my biggest failure was, man, I've had a lot of failures, a lot more failures than wins. Um, but one of my biggest failures, specifically when it comes down to specifically when it comes down to like e-commerce, right? I really want to touch on that because there's been like a lot of failures, some personal stuff. But when it comes down to like e-commerce, one of the biggest things that I failed with was proper structure, like setup of the business from the ground up. What I mean by that is I never had when I first started off is I never understood like laws and implications and like infringe and whatnot, and I never understood um support. Like I was always like, oh yeah, customer support. Like when I first started, I was like, yeah, 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 sure, sure, sure. And then it came to it because the first month that I actually tried drop shipping, that's why I said, one of two things is, and I know this is gonna come back to bite me in the butt one day, is I made $250,000 selling, those Canon coffee mugs, like the Canon
Yeah,
lens,
yeah, yeah. I
but
know
like
exactly what.
and I didn't know at the time like what infringe was. I was so like because I was so like ignorant to it. I was just like, wow, this is amazing. And I
Right.
found out, a few months later, I was like, oh, shut off, shut off, shut off. So so there's like this layered cake that I have now, which is I have this infringed product that I was selling. I did exceptionally well. And I was learning throughout the entire process too. And then there was customer service. And so I ended up having to refund a lot of people. And there was a lot of disputes that came in because I didn't structure it properly. I didn't know what to say, how to handle people. As a matter of fact, at one point, I don't want to say I didn't handle it because I ended up getting everything handled, but it was over time because I needed to learn how to structure, a team and have it all streamlined. So it was, going, at that point, it was all manually going. Now you can have everything done automated for you. There's like bots that'll answer everything, and it's crazy. But that was probably my biggest win slash failure at the same time was getting proof of concept, but not realizing like what it came with.
Yeah.
So that was yeah, that was one of my biggest failures.
I feel like I'm having deja vu. I feel like I've been through that exact thing myself. Yeah, Richard and I, we've dealt with so many, like I guess, and it comes from just you scale one month and you don't know like all the orders that you have to fulfill, and then all the customers are unhappy, and then they're all filing chargebacks, and you're like, oh hey, like you thought you were doing so well, right? Because you just see the sales coming in, and you're like, oh, I'm
Yep,
only spending this much on ads, so I'm making this much profit, and then the fulfillment gets delayed. That's why I always like I tell people like your relationship with like suppliers and stuff is like a huge part of your business.
it really
That
is.
if that isn't good, you're gonna suffer a lot. So that's a huge point. And one that we lost a ton of money to because of it. So if you're listening to this podcast, do not take this lightly. Make sure that your like structure and that your foundation is set up well, because that's just a must, because you don't want to scale something and then run into all these issues later.
Yep. It's,
Um,
it's like building a house, you know?
yeah,
You don't want to just have no foundation and then start building. It's like throwing a dart at a wall, be like, "Oh, I'll build it right here." And next thing you know, you have this house that has no foundation and it comes crumbling down because you didn't, set up the foundation. And I tell
right.
that to everybody all the time. So that's it's so important that a lot of people understand is getting that foundation right from the start is so, so, so important.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I mean, fairly easy too. Like with customer support, at least you can hire VAs from like Upwork or Fiverr or wherever.
Right.
And then when it comes to your supplier, obviously that takes a little bit of time. You have to develop relationships with them, make sure that you're both on the same page. But but yeah, it's something important that we just overlooked. We
Yep.
overlooked. We didn't pay attention to it, and yeah. So I guess I mean that's probably a great piece of advice that you can give somebody. But if you had another piece of advice that you can give a young aspiring entrepreneur, what would it be?
Um, something that I've been very something that I've been very big into, not as of recently, but since I started, was here's the thing: when you make money, right, and eventually you're going to come to a point where you make okay money, then you start making good money, then you start making great money. So there's going to come a time where you're in that good money and you're trying to get to great money, or you're in that great money and you're content. You always want to be learning, like always, because the moment you stop learning is the moment that the progression from okay to good to great, and then there's like greater, even greater. There's rich, there's wealthy. Like you keep on moving up the ladder, right? And a lot of people, they see, they make 10,000 in their first month, $120,000 in their first year. They're like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. But here's the thing: is that 120,000, what, like 56 of it goes to the government, almost 60, almost 50%, so almost 60 racks will go to the government. So, and that's if you're in the US. I know other countries have higher taxes. So here's the thing: is that like this year, I've made a ridiculous amount of money this year, and I have been trying to invest it into as many masterminds, as many programs, as many little like last week alone, I think I spent like 40 something thousand on just masterminds and airplane tickets and travel tickets to get these masterminds and whatnot. It's because I've realized that here's at the end of it all, here's the thing with it: is that if I save all this money, keep it in my bank, and don't, reinvest it into something, I'm going to get taxed on it. So I rather go ahead and use that money to leverage my knowledge to make more money. And eventually it'll come to a point where, I'll never know everything, obviously,
Right, right.
but there will come a point where I become very satisfied with the results that I'm achieving. Because once you get to that 10K, right, it's like a shark who tastes blood. You get to that 10K a month, you're like, wow, this is great, but I can only withstand so many 10K months. I want to push it to 25K. Then you get to that 25K. Then you're like, all right, this is cool, but like I want 50K. Then eventually you get to that 50K, and you're like, all right, this is great, but like 100K sounds even cooler. So then, and that's good. You always want to keep doing that. But the thing is that you'll never be able to do that without learning the processes and actually figuring it out and what to do. And the only way to really do that isn't necessarily going out there and paying everybody under the sun for coaching or some type of mastermind or whatever, but it's finding the right people who know exactly what they're doing. If they're known or unknown, you just have to kind of weed that out, and then reinvesting back into yourself, which is so important. That's my number one piece of advice. It's not, it's nothing necessarily systematical where I can be like, okay, do this, and this, and this will happen.
Mhm.
But I'm telling you that if you go out there and you just reinvest into yourself as a young entrepreneur, that's the best thing you can do. I remember the first thing I invested into was a $10,000 mentorship program. Um, by this guy. His name is Devin, and now Devin owns Smart Apps, the biggest Shopify app, the biggest apps on Shopify. He literally owns that company now. But like this was years ago. He took me under his wing and taught me a lot about e-commerce. And so and at that time, 10,000, I had like 13, 14,000 saved with a partner. And so we went 50-50 on it. And I was the one who did all, learned everything and whatnot. And so, and from there, I just kept learning, made more money. And then I did the same thing. I went to this yacht mastermind for 3 days. It was $32,000. And then that 32, eventually became like 100 G's. And then that 100 became, quarter million. A quarter million became a million, et cetera. And it kept getting more and more as I kept on learning and learning. And my network and my connections kept on expanding.
Right.
So, reinvesting into yourself is so important.
Right. Yeah. The day that you stop learning is the day that you die.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, reinvesting in masterminds and mentors. Yeah, it's a huge programs. It's a huge part of, just getting ahead of the curve too. And the way that I see it, at least like if you could get a little piece of information, and usually this is what happens. You go to a mastermind and you think that you're going to learn all this stuff, but honestly, just a little tweak that you apply somewhere makes you hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Oh yeah.
That's from experience. Like that's how it's been, and it's insane. So yeah, reinvesting. I highly I agree wholeheartedly with that. I think that's huge, super important. to do as a young entrepreneur, and even as an older entrepreneur. I think you still have to be, reinvesting and always learning. Um, Going into the next question, and also I guess this is partially uh I guess like stuff for young entrepreneurs too, because you always want to learn and whatnot. So top three books. I know that you're a reader, right? Top
Yeah.
three books.
All right. Top three books: Think and Grow Rich,
Nice.
Principles, and 48 Laws of Power.
Ooh, okay, okay. That
So
principles, that's Ray Dalio,
Ray
right?
Dalio. Oh yeah.
Okay, okay, cool, cool.
That if I had to reorder them, it would go Principles, Think and Grow Rich, 48 Laws of Power.
Okay.
But 48 Laws of Power is one of those interchangeable ones, depending on the month
Yeah.
the month that we're in, how I feel. Because
Right,
48
right.
Laws of Power is it's a pretty demented book
Yeah,
for
yeah.
anybody who's just getting started. It teaches you literally how to manipulate like
Right.
every situation you're in the most like
Cutthroat.
abhorrent way. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So I'm just like, all right.
Yeah, I remember I listened to that in an audiobook, and I was like, I remember I was in college at the time, and I remember thinking like, yeesh, like some of the
Yeah.
stuff is dark, like it's like just cutthroat as hell. And I mean that's the reality of
Yeah,
business.
and the examples they gave and whatnot, I was like, all right, I see it. But some of the laws are actually like really, like they're really, really on point. Like if you watch just some people in the industry as well, you can see it. Like I've talked to a lot of people in the industry, and some of them live by that book. And it's just funny to see because it's like inside looking out. I know what they're doing. I know how they're trying to do it, but it's just like, okay, yep, got it, all
See
right.
right through them.
So, yep, see right through them.
So even if you don't want to use the tactics in the book, you can still, I guess, see when someone's using them on you, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
You're aware.
yep, and they're powerful. So, I mean,
Yeah.
given the book name is
Right.
48 Laws of Power.
Of course, of course. Um, all right, man. So I think I don't really have anything else, but I mean, I think this was good. I think this is awesome stuff that people would definitely benefit from listening to and applying. So, guys, we are having a workshop. If you guys are seeing this on a thank you page, is because you guys probably got the book that we just talked about with Dan, the 100K Blueprint. If you guys are seeing this on YouTube or on Apple Podcast or any other podcast, uh, then there will be a link down below or somewhere around the video that you guys can get all that information. Maybe I'll even put it on the video once we have a link. I'll put it on the video so that you guys can access that as well. And yeah, I think it's gonna be tremendous. Do you know the days, Dan? Do you know the dates for the workshop?
Off the top of my head, I don't. The live one we're doing is Wednesday on the 19th.
Okay.
So I know that, and then we have, we're running the encores as well for everybody who can't make the live. We have our
Okay.
encores that we're doing. So I know for a fact that it's the 19th that we have our first live workshop. So
Awesome.
yeah,
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's gonna be super fun. Dan brings the heat as you guys he's always crushing it. And again, guys, he's a real authority figure when it comes to e-commerce. He knows his stuff. He's been around, I got guys, since 2015. That's the reason why Richard and I got into e-commerce in the first place. So super thankful, Dan. Thank you for coming on the podcast. This was great. We have to do this again more often. And yeah, man, thank you.
it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, guys. And then where can they find you if they want to learn more about what you do on YouTube? Just I guess your name, but
Yeah, so Stan Dasilva, Instagram at Dasilva. Really just, YouTube is I haven't posted in a while, but it's because obviously it's hard to be a YouTuber full time because it's not a
right,
real
yeah,
business.
right.
So I'll get back to posting again, but otherwise I post here and there on Instagram. Otherwise, just like you guys, we have like real businesses to run. So
Yeah,
we're not sitting here 24/7 recording videos.
yeah, right,
Um,
right, right.
so so yeah, otherwise Instagram or YouTube.
Awesome, awesome, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is the Ecom Profit Podcast. Like, subscribe, do what you got to do. Thank you guys so much, and have a good one.